and welcome to another installment of DB3's Risk It or Not. This week has been a very challenging week for me as a business owner. So this morning I decided to grab my cup of coffee, have my morning affirmations and my self-reflection. And in doing so, I realized that although this week has been very challenging, it wasn't the most difficult situation that I had to encounter as a small business owner. So as a small business owner, there are going to be some really difficult things that you have to encounter. And one of those things I want to discuss today is basically how to recover from a situation when you didn't deliver what you promised to your clients. Now, whether that's a hard deliverable like you missing a deadline or some other breach of contract, or you just falling short of actually meeting the expectations of your client, that gap can be very costly for your business. Not only are you going to end up losing a potential repeat customer, but your brand and your reputation can also get tarnished based on this fallback that comes from negative reviews. So over the last week or two, I have been seeing a ton of memes, and one meme has repetitively shown up on my feeds, and it deals with McDonald's and small businesses. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it says something like McDonald's can screw your order up every time you go and you will still keep going back. But if a small business messes up once, you will not only not use them again, but you're going to tell everybody about your negative experience. So we know that the marketplace and social media is unforgiving for small businesses. Most of us do not have a McDonald's brand that can withstand negative feedback or negative client reviews about the service we're providing. So today I wanted to share some tips on accountability and how you can recover when you fail to deliver what was promised. Some of the content I'm going to cover is relatable even if you do not have a business. For example, if you're a manager and you're trying to find ways to hold your team accountable, or maybe just you're trying to hold a peer accountable for doing what they said they were going to do and just holding them to the fire. So I like to start most of my videos off before I give you those golden nuggets with a reference point. And that reference point is to understand what accountability really is, so you know how to actually achieve it. So in my definition, accountability starts after a common understanding and assignment of responsibilities has been made. And that accountability does not end once you found a solution to a problem like you failing to deliver, but when all the parties involved can agree on what the problem is and what method is going to be used to eliminate recurrence. Before you consider any remedies, I want you to stop and ask yourself, why didn't you meet that commitment? Was it because you didn't have adequate resources? Was it an oversight on your behalf? Maybe you didn't understand exactly what the client was asking you to deliver. Or maybe there were some changes that happened along the way and you failed to communicate that to the customer. So there are various accountability skills that, when are used at the right time and delivered correctly, can improve how your business can recover from such mishaps. The first one is to know what the problem is. So the key is to identify and address the right problem. If you fail to address the right problem, what you're going to see sometimes is that other problems have accumulated on top of the root cause or the underlying problem. So being pressured to respond to a client under a time constraint or when emotions are high on both sides can cause you not to confront the right problem. So just remember, it's going to take time, it's going to take patience, and it's going to take practice. But if you start by unbundling the problem, then shifting through the problem to identify What is the concerns of the client? How does your failure to deliver on this commitment impact their business? How does it impact your business? How does it impact other stakeholders like your employees or suppliers based on failing to meet this commitment? Step 2 is to know when to be silent. So there are going to be times when it's best for you not to bring up the problem. After weighing the consequences, sometimes we can look at whether or not that's an option. A good scenario for that would be if you were working on a project with a difficult subcontractor and the work process could have been better. They may have missed one of their deadlines by a day or two, which caused you to shift your process to make up that time frame for your part of the project. But in your mind, you've already made up that you were not going to work with this potential person on another project. This is a one-time thing only. In that case, it's a good scenario to not bring up or rehash what happened on that project because you have no intentions to use them in the future. However, if a client brings up an issue, well, that brings us to point 3, which is a very critical one, of knowing what to say. Any discussions with a client at this level needs to clearly and very simply address the gap. What was delivered and what was expected. This is where service agreements could either hurt you or help you. So in the service agreement, both parties are signing off saying, this is what's being requested of your company, and this is how it's going to be delivered, when it's going to be delivered, who's going to deliver it, go on and so forth, right? Everyone understands. If you don't have a service agreement, then you're going to probably struggle with trying to find a way to be held accountable here. But it also holds your clients accountable because if you have changes to the scope of work of what they ask, for example, they ask for you to make some modifications to the product, which would add extra days on when you can deliver it, that will be clearly communicated in that service agreement. So when you're having these accountability discussions with your clients, knowing what to say and being very succinct about what was agreed upon based on a service agreement, opens a conversation between you and the client where it can be a free space of mutual respect, so both sides can understand each other's point of view and understand how to move forward. I'm going to tell you that even with all of this, there's no amount of preparation that can save a relationship if the person that's raising the issue is not in the right frame of mind. So whether your client is upset and is not really open to a conversation about it, or you're just unsympathetic, or maybe you're defensive because you're not good at taking constructive criticism. So in addition to knowing what to say, it's even more important to know when to say it and how to say it. So once you are at this point where you're having this accountability discussion with your client, make sure that you walk away from this conversation with a plan of action that outlines who will do what and when. And then you want to make sure that it's an agreed upon method that has some type of follow-up on that plan. So I will share with you, I had a client that actually had a mishap where she failed to deliver what was promised. So in the conversation she had with the client, she basically said that, by the next business day, she was going to have the quote revised. So that was critical for the client because they were looking to get this new quote in for budgeting purposes to their finance department. So what happened was she had that conversation. Both parties agreed that yes, we'll wait until the next business day to get the revised quote. Where she failed to follow up was that she did not tell, I'm going to call him Johnny Boy, in her company to revise the quote, email it to the client, on the next business day. She also failed to follow up with Johnny Boy to see if it was done. And lastly, she failed to follow up with the client to make sure that they got what they needed based on that last conversation. So now you left the client in a situation where they had the original failed promise, and now you further complicated this relationship by failing to deliver on what you agreed upon. So those are some tips and some stories and scenarios that I thought was relative to finding ways to be accountable in your business. And if there's any takeaway that I can leave you with from this video, I want to tell you, don't downplay the cost of taking any action when you observe a gap. It's really easy to persuade yourself to not have a difficult conversation with someone because you're fearful of the outcome. But I want you to avoid confusing the question of whether the conversation is going to be difficult with the question of whether you should have that conversation or not. So that's all I have. It's really short. It's Friday. I hope you all have a great weekend. But before you log off of this video, please go into the general description and look at the details. I have provided some really good books that can help you with accountability. Accountability is one, and the information with the authors there, as well as another book that I found very helpful for small businesses called No Excuses. And I've also provided a couple of IG handles of some accountability coaches that are very good at helping leaders and businesses build in accountability with their staff and their potential clients. That's all I have for you for this week's installment of DB3's Risk It or Not, and I hope to see you next week.